So just to say thank you for allowing us to have it here at Millennium Point.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. The Earth was presented in the think tank, wasn't it? Not the Earth. The moon was presented in the think tank just a few years ago. So it's nice to be back. And I'm really pleased. I seem to have a long-term relationship with the Millennium Point. I had an arts project called the Sky Orchestra, and we took off from just outside the Millennium Point in 2005. So we had 2004? 2004. We had 7 hot air balloons, all with speakers attached, and we laid out all these balloons at 6 a.m. And then we inflated them, and then we flew over the whole city playing this music from the sky, a project called the Sky Orchestra. So that was the first time I was at the think tank and Millennium Point. So and then we've done several projects since then.
Yeah, which is great, and this building, is owned by a charity, and as a charity we're here to support technology and engineering and advancements in that, and getting more young people to go into it. So it felt just really fitting to have Gaia here, and hopefully the big sustainability message, but also inspiring young people to look at this installation and say, well, what can I do in terms of, because I think what this really shows is art and science coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hoping that the artwork will sort of inspire conversation to make people, think about the Earth and realize just we only have one planet, and we're living on this very thin, fragile skin. The atmosphere is incredibly thin. And so, what we do in Birmingham is affecting people all around the world. We're very, very much interconnected. And we're in this sort of climate crisis, and we really have to shift society and think quite carefully about how we change ourselves to make ourselves more sustainable.
Yeah, and I think so. It's great that it's here, and that messaging around that, because I guess, was that your inspiration around Gaia when you were looking to develop it?
The inspiration for this project came from something called the overview effect, which is an experience that astronauts get when they first go into space and they look down at the planet and they realize just how beautiful it is. And they often become sort of overwhelmed by the beauty and the wonder of what they can see as they stare down at the Earth. And when astronauts come back to Earth, they often become environmental campaigners, because they realize kind of what they've had just such this sort of profound experience. And so, I'm hoping that with this artwork, it sort of gives the public a sense of what that overview effect might be like, to imagine themselves floating in space, looking down at the Earth, and get a sense of the beauty and the awe of it.
Yeah, and you've just reminded me actually of, I went out to a school where we'd supported a project to inspire them into engineering and looking at engineering in a more holistic view, as it not being in a manufacturing plant, building cars, etc., looking at it very differently. And it was with a group of 8-year-olds, and at the end of it, this little girl, they said, anybody who'd like to be an engineer? And she was like, yeah, putting her hand up. And they said, what does an engineer do? And she just said, it's about engineers solve world problems. And I was just like, wow, it just really kind of winded me. And then she said, I'm going to create a machine that we can put in the ocean and get rid of all the plastic and save the planet. And I guess that is what I want Gaia to have, that impact as well.
Yeah, I think it will. Sometimes we draw huge audiences to this artwork, and many of them, I think the artwork can be very inspirational for some people who might want to go on and study, could be space science, marine biology. They might become environmental campaigners, or meteorologists. I'm hoping it will inspire the next generation.
Yeah, and I think for us as a charity as well, we're trying to make young people realise that it's not about art or science, it's about art and science. And a lot of those with a real creative brain, and I think this is what you're demonstrated here with Gaia, to be an engineer, because I look at this and you can say it's art, but also it's a really fantastic piece of engineering, and getting young people to say, well, yeah, I'm really good at art, but actually I can use that skill in a way, you know, engineering is not off the table for me, or science, because they work hand in hand.
Yeah, so I studied maths and physics at school, and had as well as art, and then I had a place at university to do engineering. But I decided to do an art degree instead. And just there seemed to be a lot more excitement on the course by comparison to an engineering course, a lot more. And but even now, a lot of my artworks involve engineering and science, and I'm inventing things all the time and solving problems and using maths and all those sorts of things. So a lot of the projects use all these different skills that come together, and it's just kind of what I do. But it's really important in order for me to have the conversations with, you know, the fabricators, to learn to think about sort of forces and wind loadings and fixtures and fittings, and, you know, all those sort of technicalities is quite important to me.
Yeah. And I guess with all your installations, they must be quite special to you. What does Gaia, I guess, mean to you when you see it, I guess, displayed like it is today?
Yeah, it means different things to me depending on where I am and what I'm doing. I remember seeing, you know, the first time I saw it, I thought, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And I was presented very much with environmental messaging in mind. But then I saw it halfway through, middle of last year, I think it was during a lockdown. And it was the artwork with the Earth was presented in the painted gallery in London. It was a really beautiful setting. Yeah. And it was very emotional, actually, to see the artwork in that way, because that was one of my first exhibitions for maybe a couple of months. And then I also thought about the artwork in relation to COVID, the fact we're all on this planet and we're incredibly connected through this pandemic. We're all going through this sort of global experience. And it made me think about it in that way. So I think the artwork, it expresses something depending on what you bring to it. So if you go to it as a marine biologist, you're going to have one experience. If you go there as a 4-year-old child, you're going to have something completely different. Some people have sort of romantic experiences underneath it with their partners. Other people do yoga underneath it. And it's nice that you've got this whole program of events that are taking place beneath it. So that's really nice. The artwork is both this installation for people to enjoy, but also it acts as a venue for events to take place beneath it. So it's very much, lots of the art projects I do, they're like that. They leave space for other people to be creative. And for me, that's what makes it unique whenever the artwork gets presented.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And you're definitely right in terms of it does. And I said this when I guess launched it to the people who came to see it last night, was that it will ignite something in all of us in a real different way. And depending on the day as well, when you're there, it is very, I find it makes me feel just very calm and just can sit there and just think. It's very, it's a really lovely experience. So we've got lots of information around the building on Gaia, but is there anything that you could tell us about Gaia that the general public might not know already?
Ooh,
that's a tough question.
No, it is quite a tough question. The imagery used to make the Earth came from 2014 from satellite imagery. But it's like 72 dpi, so you can actually see the sort of deforestation of the Amazon rainforest. If you look closely enough, you can actually see the patterns of the roads that have been cut into it.
That was a question I've been asked several times yesterday. So what was the date of that image?
There we go. So there's a bit of information there. What else? It spins around once every, I think, 4 minutes. And it's a speed I chose just to give people, it just helps. Initially, we tested it out with a motor that went around once a minute, and it was just too much. It was just sort of flying around. So it's quite something. But the air inside it, I think it is just a balloon with a light in. It's a very simple thing. That's what I've realized over the years, is that actually sometimes keeping artworks technologically basic is quite important. Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of little details that hold it all together. I'm not sure. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's really. In fact, you've answered several of the questions that people asked me last night.
Okay.
In terms of when that date, that image, because you're right. You know, the date's important because so much is happening to the planet in the period. So I guess it's changing in shape, not as shape as the world, but the shape of land masses. And I think one interesting thing that I realised when it went up yesterday was how much of the world is actually water.
Yeah, there's a lovely moment. There's a certain angle when you're looking at the Pacific Ocean, when actually all you can see is water. I mean, that's an extraordinary thing, isn't it? Literally half of the planet is just water. And you don't get that sense when you look at maps, because maps are distorting. You're taking something that's spherical and translating it to something that's completely flat. So you do get that. And also you get a sense of just how big Africa is. It's absolutely massive by comparison to Britain, which is really hard to see. It's right at the top.
It is.
And just how small it is.
Yeah, it is. It does. I've realised that. But that's great. No, it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
For allowing us to have her here, and thank you for your time today.
No, an absolute pleasure. And maybe we'll send you up Mars next, or the moon or something like that.